Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads. Okay, so it's it's Wicked month, and last year I read Wicked, and this year I want to read Son of a Witch. Okay, so the first part is called Under the Jackal Moon, and this part is called the chapter is called The House of Saint Galinda 1. So the talk of random brutality wasn't just talk. At noontime, they discovered the bodies of 3 young women out on some conversion that appeared to have gone awry. The novice mounts had been strangled by the roots of their holy bees and their faces removed. Ugh. Her nerve being shaken at last, Otzi Manglehand now carved in the demands of her paying customers. So she told the team drivers they'd pause only long enough to dig some shallow graves while the horses shake their thirst. Then the caravan would press on across the scrubby flats known for the fates of farmsteads abandoned here and there as the disappointments. Moving by night, at least they would make a sitting target, though they might as easily wander in the trouble to sidestep it. Still, Otzi's party was antsy. Hunkered down a night and wait for the horse hoof spears. Too hard on everyone. Otzi consoled herself. If the caravan kept moving, she could sit forward with her eyes peeled, out of the range, carving, the second-guessing and worrying. With the benefit of height, therefore, Otzi spotted the guilty party before anyone else did. The cloudburst at sunset had fed a small trackside rivulet that flowed around a plank of skin, water lacquered in the new moonlight. An island, she feared, of human flesh. I turned to aside before the others noticed. She thought, how much more can they take? There was nothing I can do for the human soul. The digging of another trench would require an hour minimum, an additional few moments for prayers. Their project would only further agitate these clients as they obsess about their own precious mortality. Upon the knee of the horizon balanced the head of the Jackal moon, so called because every generation or so a smear of celestial flotsam converged behind the crescent moon of early autumn. The impact was creepy, a look of a brow in a snout. As the moon rounded over a period of weeks and then struggled out, would turn to a successful hunter, its cheeks bulging. Always a fearsome night. The Jackal moon tonight spooked Otzi Manglehand further. Don't stop for this next casualty. Get through the disappointments. Deliver these paying customers to the gates of Emerald City. But she resisted giving to superstition. Be careful of the real Jackal, she reminded herself, not frets and nocturnal potents. In any case, the light of the constellation alleviated some of the cloud lines that set in the moonlight. The body was pale, almost luminous. Otzi might traverse the grass trail train and give the course a wide berth before anyone else noticed it. But the slope of the person's shoulders, the unnatural twist of legs, the Jackal mood made her read the figure too well, as it was clearly human for her to be able to turn aside. Nub, she barked for a second, rein in. Well, pull into the flank formation up the rise. There's another fatality there in the runoff. Cries of the alarm passed back, and another mutter of mutiny. Why should they stop? Were they to bear witness to every fresh atrocity? Otzi didn't listen. She yanked the reins of the team of her horses. To halt them, she lowered herself gingerly. She stumped her hand over the sore hip until she stood a few feet over her body. Face down and genitals hidden, he appeared to have been a young man. A few scraps of fabric were still knotted around his waist, and a boot came some yards distant, but he was otherwise naked and no sign of his clothes. Curious, no evidence of the assassins. Neither had there been about the bodies of the mounts, but that was on the rockier ground in a drier hour. Otzi couldn't have any sign of scuffle here. And in the mud of the gulch, one might have expected something. The body wasn't bloody nor decayed. Yet the murder was recent, perhaps this evening, perhaps only an hour ago. Nub, let's heave him up and see if he can take in this face, she said. No blood, said Nub. Blood may have run off in the cloud, bro. Steel yourself now. They got on the side of the body and bit their lips. She looked at Nub, meaning the next thing. It's not the last thing. Let's get through this fellow. She jerked her head in the direction of the hoist. 1, 2, heave. They got him up. His head had fallen into a natural scoop of stone, a few inches higher than where the rain had pulled. His face was intact, more or less, than it was today. Though Shad, how did he get here, said Nub, and why didn't they scrape him? Otzi just shook her head. She settled on her haunches. Her traveler had come forward, and they were congregating on the rise behind her. She could hear them rustling. She suspected that they had gathered stones and were ready to kill her if they insisted on a burial. The Jackal moon rose a few notches higher, as if they were trying to get into a gallery. The prurience of the heavens. We're not going to dig another grave. That from her noisiest client, a wealthy trader from northern Vincus. Not his, Oats, see Manglehand, and not yours either. We're not doing it. We're not leaving him unburied alone. Or we leave him unburied with your corpse or company. We don't need to do this either, said Oatsy. She sighed. Poor soul, whoever he is, he needs no grave. He isn't dead yet. 2. In time, when the travelers had rejoined their cronies and relatives in the Emerald City, in salons, in public houses, and taverns of exchange, they heard more chatter about the hostilities they managed to sidestep. Rumor flourished. 40, 60, 100 deaths resulting from the skirmishes between the Skrull and the Unamata. Barbarians, the lot of them. They deserve to be killed off each other, but not us. Rumor could be wrong, of course, but it couldn't be uninteresting. 200 dead. Twice. That mass graves, and they could be found any day. But the luxury of safety came first. The grass trail train had to resume its snail's progress through the disappointments. Geographical variety, the hills, the mountains, dales, and forests that made the rest of us so memorable, such a heartland, with short supply here. Just flats, shales, more flats, gray, this newspapers. The prospect was dispiriting, and the notion of having to carry an invalid with them didn't improve matters. O.T. Manglehand's clients had paid good hard cash for her service, some originating from as far away as Oogaboo, and others having joined in the group alongside the eastern foothills of the Great Kells. They considered that their own safe travel should be Otzi's sole concern. Otzi reminded them that they didn't have a vote. She didn't represent her clients that would travel unencumbered by waifs and strays. Indeed, by terms of their contract, she was a free liability should any of the travelers be murdered on the trail of a fellow passenger, a stowaway, a hitchhiker, a native. Otzi had promised to lead the caravan as safely as she could, relying on her knowledge of the train and its populations. That was it, period. To the end, she chosen a new route intended to avoid the current spot of the interminable conflict. And so far, so good, right? The invalid was lost on board. Despite her bravado, Otzi was indeed sensitive to her client's fears, and in a way she was glad to have the unconscious young man with them. It was distracted the travelers, who remained oblivious of their resentment. She bedded him in the third carriage back, requisitioning from her clients in the warmest of winter robes. She mounted them into a cocoon. There he languished day and night, not so much fevered as feverless, in equally worrying condition. After a day of trying, Nub was able to spoon a few tips of brandy between the lad's lips, and Otzi fancied she saw his muscles relax in a new way. She couldn't be certain of this. She was no doctor. Of one thing she was sure, though, with his arrival, the mood of the grass trail train changed. Why? Perhaps as if the poor creature had been beaten within an inch of his life and lived, there might be hope for all of them. Think about it. His face hadn't been scraped. People relaxed. The nasal buzz of prayers around the for a campfire gave way to a quieter mood. Song returned in time. We'll make it. We deserve to. The privilege of life has been according to us. See, we've been saved. Must be for a reason. Spines straightened, eyes grew bright and moist in a rapture of gratitude as the plan of God, as the plan of the unnamed God. Another week, and they had rounded the landmark rock that parted their U-turn north, and they left behind them in disappointment the greater threat of ambush. In the month of summer, the wind flicked the strands of oak hair in the forest that grew between the lakes. The squirrels spilled nuts on the scar-skin roofs of the wagons. The air was more watery, too, though both lakes were out of sight beyond the miles of woods on either side. As the oak hair forest thinned and they reached the shale shallows, the shady, surrounded and homely walls of an old settlement solidified in the middle of walnut-colored fields. The first stone building they've seen in 6 weeks. Despite its steep, aggrieved gables and pinched-out buildings, despite its battlement defenses, nothing, not even the Emerald City, could seem more a welcome sight just then. The cloister of St. Galinda, they buzzed. How holy it appears. The monks who lived within were divided into ranks. Some took vows of silence and lived cloistered. Others took vows of indulgence. They indulged in teaching, tending the sick, and operating a hostelry for those who traveling between the southern Kells and the Emerald City. So the broad carved the doors that were swung open, and then the grass trail train pulled up. The welcome committee, a band of 3 aged mounts with starched collars and Batista attention. They greeted Otzi with frosty politeness. They were suspicious of any unmarried woman who had found a way to live single, apart from the female community. Still, they offered the traditional wipe of the face with sweet rose fern. A fourth mount, sequestered behind a screen, played a welcoming anthem, poorly. Harsh strings snapped, and the sound of an unmounted oath issued forth. The travelers didn't care. They were almost in heaven, to anticipate beds and a warm meal and wine. A captive audience ready to throw out the story of their journey. In this last item, though the monks gave bad value for money, their attention was riveted by the invalid. In the last item, though, the mounts gave bad value for money. At last their attention was riveted by the invalid. They carried him into the loggia and hurried to collect a stretcher so he could be hauled upstairs to the infirmary. The mounts were beginning to ship the fellow to private quarters when the superior mount wafted by, fresh from her morning devotions. She greeted Otzi Manglehand with the least of nods and glanced upon the broken lad for a moment. Then she waved his hands, removed him. She said to Otzi, "We know him. We know this one." "You do?" said Otzi. "If my memory hasn't begun to fail me," the superior mount continued, "you should know him as well. You took him from us some years ago. 15, was it 20? At my age, I don't the passage of time as I thought. He'd have been a child 20 years ago. An infant," said Otzi. "I never took an infant from the mauntery." "Perhaps not an infant, but you took him just the same. He traveled with a disagreeable novice who served for several years in the hospice. You were conveying them to the castle stronghold of the Arjikis, Kyamiko. He was with Elphaba? Now you remember, I see you do. The Wicked Witch of the West, as some call her, the superior mount said, not I. Her name here was Sister Saint Elphaba, but I seldom called her anything. She was more or less under a vow of silence, her own. She needed no addressing." "You recognize him from youth to now?" said Otzi. "You've seen him since?" "No, but I do not forget a face." Otzi raised her eyebrows. "I have seen so few faces," exclaimed the superior mount. "We do not talk now. I must have Sister Doctor here to look the boy over." "What was his name?" The superior mount vanished without answering. By nightfall, as Otzi's clients finished their nightcap, the next generation of rumors was launched. The man-child was with the Emperor's confessor. He was a brigade trafficking in the sex trade. He spoke in the voice of a loon. Except for the single rib, the man-child had broken every bone in his body. Many other rumors were contradictory, which the aggregate made them all the more amusing. And I'm going to start right there. See you later.